Rolling. Sherry, can you please remind us how to use teleconferencing?
Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video for purposes of quorum and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. All panelists, that is alders, committee, and staff, have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Also, please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So this meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order. All speakers wishing to address the committee regarding an agenda item must first fill out a registration form. Speakers may speak to the committee only after they're called by the chair. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The public is not allowed to address or respond to speakers or committee members unless they have been recognized by the chair of the committee. Mr. Verbeek, are there any notified absences?
Yes, ACA Brist is a notified absence, as well as Captain Zanders, and Captain Zanders' place lieutenant Edward Marshall is here. Excellent.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Lieutenant Marshall. All right, I call this meeting of the ALRC to order at 5:39 p.m. Mr. Verbeek, please call the roll.
Sorry, late one. I just got an email from Alder Miadzi as well, and he said he will not be here as well. So I will call the roll now. Alder Revere.
Here.
Alder Revere here. Mr. Barashuk?
Here.
Mr. Barashuk here. Dr. Reese?
Here.
Dr. Reese here. Ms. Farley? Mr. Donnelly?
Present.
Mr. Donnelly here. Ms. Westra?
Here.
Westra here. Alder Carter? And Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah.
All right. Chair, we have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next item is approval of the minutes from our meeting on October 19th. Committee, what's your pleasure? Mr. Brusha.
Move to approve.
Hear a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Second from Ms. Westra. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Mr. Verbeek, are there any registrants for general public comment?
There are not.
All right. Disclosures and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any such disclosures or recusals? Seeing none. Next up, presentation of the consent agenda. At this time, a consent agenda will be moved with recommended action for each item on it, either to grant with conditions, or refer. Mr. Verbeek, will you please share the proposed consent agenda?
Sure. So the proposed consent agenda for ALRC meeting November 23rd, 2022, recommend the council to grant item 4, change of agent, item 10, 21 entertainment license, number 13, public hearing new license, and refer to December 21st, 2022 ALRC meeting Item number 3, operator license, and item 8, change of license premises. Just a quick background on this. So 10 and 13, this applicant came before us last month after our meeting, but prior to the council meeting, they discovered their address was wrong. So we had to renotice it in the paper and go through this again. So previously it was 1151 was approved, and this is 1145. There were no conditions placed on the license last month. And then items 3 and 8 that are both being referred, those are both requests by the applicants to refer to next month's meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Committee, are there any items you would like separated from the consent agenda? Mr. Bouchon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has the clerk verified that it was just a clerical mistake or honest mistake on the address?
Yeah, they said they found out from the landlord that the address was actually different than they had found. So it was a problem on the applicant's end based on a confusion between them and the landlord. So that's why they had notified us immediately, and we worked out how to move forward.
Thank you. I'm voting yes on the consent agenda.
All right. I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as proposed. Do I hear a second? Second from Ms. Westra. Is there any discussion? Bearing in mind that you also have the option to request separation of an item. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. Mr. Verbeek, will you make sure people know that they can go home?
So the past consent agenda for ALRC meeting November 23rd, 2022. Recommend council to grant item number 4, change of agent, Quick Trip Inc. Item number 10, 21 plus entertainment license, Hayes Place LLC at 1145 North Sherman Avenue. Item number 13, public hearing new license, Hayes Place LLC, 1145 North Sherman Avenue, Class B combination liquor and beer. And refer to December 21st, 2022 ALRC meeting, item number 3, operator license application, Gary Elmore. And item number 8, change of license premises, Madison Locomotive LLC at 646 West Washington Avenue, number 5.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Verbeek. It seems unlikely, given that Gary Elmore was kind enough to notify us that he wouldn't be here. Just in case he isn't here next month, please make sure that we know it wasn't referred because he was a no-show, but because he said he wasn't going to be able to be here. So next up, item 2, operator's license application for Andrew Weber. Is Andrew here?
We do not have a registrant for this item.
And
this is the 3rd time it's appeared before us.
Mr. Fletcher?
Motion to place on file without prejudice.
Is there a second? Second from Ms. Westra. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. Item 2 is placed on file without prejudice. Do we have any items with a translator?
We do. We have 2 items for interpretation. We have item number 14. We have a Mandarin interpreter here. And item number 18, we have a Thai interpreter here.
Okay. Well, let's move on to item 14. Item 14, new license application for Fuki Hot Pot. Who do we have registered? Oh, I'm sorry. Jim, will you swear in the translator, please, or the interpreter, please?
The interpreter is here.
Yes. Can you, I don't see you, but can you raise your right hand to affirm that you will accurately interpret English to Mandarin and Mandarin to English?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And Chair, the registrant here is Gongkai Mao, or Gongkai Ma.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay. So, and just a reminder for the committee, please speak directly to the applicant and trust the interpreter to do translation on your behalf. So can you please state your name for the record and let us know what your proposed business is?
你好，就是可以说一下你的名字，然后还有你要提起的这个申请是什么？
OK， 我名字叫马公凯，然后提取的是这个就是餐馆，名字叫 Fuki Hapa， 餐馆的酒牌 license。
好的，the applicant's name is Gong Kai Ma, and she is here for the registration of the alcohol licensing for her restaurant Fuki Hapa. Sorry, I can't hear
Excellent. Can you please tell us about your restaurant? What will it be like?
你可以简单介绍一下就是餐厅的情况吗？就是它会是什么样的？
OK， 就是谈吃的形式，然后自助 all you can eat 的，然后我们可能就是会卖一些啤酒跟红酒，啤酒跟红酒。
啤酒跟红酒是吗？ Okay, so the restaurant will be a buffet, and they want to serve beer and the red wine, possibly.
Thank you. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? Assistant City Attorney Zelovi.
Thank you. I'm not sure who is speaking on behalf of the applicant, but if it's the name that's listed there, I don't see that on the application anywhere.
So, what is your relationship to this business?
就是他们看到的这个申请上面的名字不是你的名字，所以你和这个申请人的关系是什么？
就是说这个我这个申请是通过就是 building 的 owner， 然后是building 的 owner， 我们用就是这个公开码这个名字来申请酒牌的，然后我们是租给就是说那个 tenant， 然后但是我们是用 building 的 owner 的名字来申请酒牌的。
所以你是就是这个楼的所有，对吧？然后要用你的名字去申请酒牌，但是餐厅不是你的，是这样吗？
对，
是你租给了他们。Okay. So the applicant here, she is the owner of the building, but she's not the owner of the restaurant. And who's gonna do the restaurant is the tenant, her tenant.
And is the tenant not here tonight?
所以那个就是你的租客，他现在在场吗？
就是我也是这个 building 的owner， 但是也是这个火锅店的 partner。
你是火锅店的 partner。
对。
Okay, she's not only the owner of the building, she's also the partner of the restaurant.
Are you an officer of the corporation that owns the restaurant?
就是你们俩现在的关系就是一个合作关系是吧？还是说你是 OK？ 所以你就是你们俩是都是老板，是这个意思吧？
对。
They both run the corporation.
Mr. Chair, I don't see the name on the list of the directors. So
So it appears that your name is not on the list of directors or officers for the corporation.
就是现在的那个办公人员，就是你们公司的办公人员上面没有你的名字。
哦，可能我填9排的时候，我填的是另外一个 partner 的名字吗？我也不记得了。
上面写的名字是杨林平。所以是填错了吗？
是申请9排的时候填的是杨林平吗？
是的。So she's asking then who's the name on the application for the alcohol license?
well, it needs to the person that needs to be at this meeting speaking to it has to be either the liquor license agent or a member of the LLC. So the committee can't really deal with this unless one of those individuals is present.
他们就是不可以去发这个9排，因为那个就是今天不可以，因为他的 agent 上面就是他的申请人写的不是你。
哦，这样子。那我们是要去申请的，我现在可以改吗？
She's asking if she can change it right now.
No, she can't.
现在不能改。
我有一点困惑，就是我这个杨林平是我的名字，但是我今天是代表帮我老公来参加这个，他的名字叫马公凯，我帮他来参加这个会议，就是这样子。
你是杨林平是吗？
对，然后因为我以为说是马公凯是这个 owner 嘛，所以我要报他的名字给基理。
Okay, I get it. So her name is actually Lin-Ping Yang, which is the agent of this application. And she thought that she should be present as the building owner's name. So Gong Kai Ma is her husband. So actually the applicant is the name on the, yeah.
So are you saying that the name that you gave us earlier, that you said was your name, is not your name?
That's correct. Her name is what I saw on the agenda. And the name appear on Zoom is her husband's name.
Well, this is a new one. Assistant City Attorney Zelavi, what is your recommendation?
I would recommend to refer this to the December meeting, and I will attempt to reach out to Lin-Ping Yang and figure this out so that when they come back next month, there's not this confusion.
Thank you. Mr. Bruchak.
Thank you, Chair. I will move Attorney Zillavi's recommendation to refer to next meeting, and thank you for thank you, Attorney Zillavi, for looking into this for us.
And is a second from Ms. Westra.
所以就是他们会把你就是提交到下一个 meeting 里面，下一个会议中，然后他们也会联系你，然后去解释这个困惑的这个点。他们现在没有见过这个情况。
OK， 那我到底是下一次就是说我自己来，就是报我的名字，还是说我老公的名字？我还是很不是很理解。
好的. So she's asking next time in the December meeting, should she be present as her own name or her husband's name?
She should answer every question we ask truthfully, including what her name is.
就是下一次他们问你就就答自己的名字就可以了。而且在这个申请上面，其实你的名字才是对的。
OK， 然后下一次我老公要不要一起来呢
？So should her husband also be here next time?
If she is the agent, then there is no need for anyone other than her to be here. But she must be certain that she is who she says she is.
OK， 所以其实你才是这个申请人，所以你可以自己来，然后报自己的名字就可以了。
OK。
So we have a motion and a second to refer to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Is there any dissent? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 14 is referred to the next ALRC meeting. Next up, item 18, new license application for Thai Basil. I see a question from the interpreter. Fire away.
So should I still be here or I can go?
Jim?
Yeah, you're able to leave because we do not have another item that requires Mandarin interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night. All right, next up, item 18, new license application for Thai Basil. Do we have a registrant here for this item? Hopefully the owner or agent.
We do. Critafal Bhattacharyan.
Excellent. Will you please swear in the interpreter?
ทำไมไม่มี
I am the interpreter.
So if I can have you raise your right hand and affirm that you'll accurately interpret English to Thai and Thai to English. You so affirm?
Did you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So can you please state your name for the record? And it should be your name. And let us know a bit about your proposed business.
สวัสดีสวัสดีนะคนฮัลโหลได้ยินไหม
ได้ยินผมไหมครับ
โอเคได้ยินค่ะเขาถามว่าวันนี้คนร้านอาหารหรือว่าร้านที่ควรจะเปิดนะเป็นร้านอาหารอะไรหรือว่าร้านอะไรแล้วคนมาที่นี่คนอยากจะคนต้องการอะไรเหรอแล้วชื่อของคนชื่ออะไรเหรอ
ผมชื่อกิตติพลlast name โพธิเจริญครับ
คนน่าจะเรียนโอเคแล้วจะเปิดร้านอาหารอะไรเหรอ
เป็นร้านอาหารไทยครับ
ร้านอาหารไทยโอเค
ครับ
แล้วแล้วมาที่ตอนนี้วันนี้มานี่เพราะอะไรเหรอ
วันนี้มีแอลกอฮอล์รีวิวมีตติ้งครับผมก็เลยมาเข้าคลาสเพื่อจะมาฟังรีวิวครับ
โอเค alright my name is Kritapon Pratik
โพธิเจริญ
อะไรนะ
โพธิเจริญครับ
โพธิเจริญmy name is Kritapon Pratik Jaran. I am opening a Thai restaurant called Thai Basil, and the reason I'm here today is to attend a alcohol committee review.
Excellent. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? Mr. Bruchak.
your application says that it's mostly food. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Committee, what additional questions do you have for the applicant? Well, this seems pretty straightforward. Mr. Verbeek, are there any other registrants for this item?
There are not.
Committee, what is your pleasure? Mr. Fletcher.
Move approval, Chair.
Here, motion to approve from Mr. Fletcher, second from Ms. Westra. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none, motion carries. New license for Thai Basil is granted.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great night. Good fall.
Thank you so much. But then, do we have to stay on the meeting until we finish the committee?
You absolutely do not have to stay in the meeting.
Oh, okay. So would be now is okay to leave the room or right or?
Yep.
Yes.
And you can go by City Hall and pick up your provisional license, which will be finalized at the next Common Council meeting.
Oh, thank you, sir. But in case of if we have further questioning to the committee, something like that.
Any question, or Mr. Bruchak?
Mr. Chairman, I know it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I don't think we're going to get on late night TV tonight. So everyone wants to go, but I wanted to remind the applicant he's perfectly welcome to stay as well.
Of course. Yes, you're welcome to stay. But while I suppose technically we could reopen this item, we aren't going to.
But then I have the question on mine because this time is going to be my first time that I have the liquor license through the Wisconsin state. My question is when I have the class in the alcohol license classes, they have something that I try to verify with you that on the test they said the underage who going to with parents, let's say are they all?
I'm gonna stop you there because we cannot give out legal advice.
Oh, okay.
What I would recommend is that you speak with an attorney who can probably fill you in on all of this in an hour or so.
Oh, okay. That's fine, sir. Sorry about that. But it's just that.
It's nothing to be sorry for.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nothing else. Thank you so much for having me in the review meeting today, and then I probably will leave the room. And thank you again, and you guys have enjoyed. Let's see, Thanksgiving.
Excellent. You too. Have a great night.
Yeah, bye.
All right. So next up, we've got an entity reorganization for Sundown Saloon, which is number 5, and also a change of licensed premises for Sundown Saloon, which is number 9. So do we have a registrant here for these items?
We do. Tracy Schmack is here.
Excellent. Tracy, can you please state your name for the record and let us know about what's going on with both of these items?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, my name is Tracy Schmack from Sundown Saloon. I can't see anybody, is that right?
I actually don't know.
Okay. Kind of new at this, I guess.
We're not, and yet. Sherry, should she be able to see us?
Okay, I see you, but I don't. Yeah. Anyway,
I guess
I just see my name
She'll just see
on
the
it.
person. Yeah, she'll just see the person that's speaking.
Oh,
Okay.
and then while you're speaking, Tracy, you'll see the black rectangle with your name on it.
Okay.
So can you please tell us about your entity reorganization and also about what you would like changed about your licensed premises?
Okay. Yeah. My husband's sick. He's in a memory care facility. And so I didn't know if I should change my license to my name in case something happens, or if that automatically changes because we own it together. Just trying to get ahead of this stuff, I guess. And then we have a patio in back with the eatery license, and I just wanted to change that to more of a permanent patio now for the summer.
All right. So let's take those in order. So who are the current officers of this corporation? You and your husband?
Yes.
And you're going to change it so that it's just you?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. I just, I guess I'm just trying to get ahead of this so I don't have to finagle stuff later. I don't know if this would if I should just change it when the license comes up again, April, or if I should do it now. I guess I just don't know.
Well, you're already here. So,
okay.
Committee, what questions do you have regarding the entity reorganization?
I just want to clarify, I believe it was just her husband that was the officer, and now this is changing it. So he is no longer an officer, and she is now going to be an officer.
I see. So, Tracy, what has your role been in this business?
Well, I do the everyday books. We do everything together. So if we have to bartend, we do. And if we hire people and fire people, Larry and I both did it together.
Assistant City Attorney Zellevey.
I just wanted to give Tracy some reassurance that I think now is a good time to be doing this. So
thank you.
Thank you for doing it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Assistant City Attorney Zellevey. So, Alder Verveer, are you here with us? Right. Well, committee, what questions do you have about this entity reorganization? Okay. Given that I think these are unrelated matters, we should have them as separate motions. I would entertain a motion for Assistant City Attorney Zellevey. I think your hand's up from before. Ms. Westra.
Move approval.
Your motion to approve the entity reorganization in item 5. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Bruchak. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Mr. Fletcher.
Sure, I to ask the question in situations like this, but does the committee need any sort of other documentation given the sort of dynamic at play here? I just think I should ask before we.
Sure. So there are two parts to this. Or at least two parts. There's the part with the incorporation of the business as far as the state of Wisconsin is concerned. And that has whatever requirements it has. Presumably, they want to know that somebody actually has the authority to do something. And our part is saying, yes, we acknowledge this, and you're okay with continuing to have a license, even though the corporation has changed. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. I just I think I wanted to ask the question given the kind of issues at play. So
we have seen things in the past where someone perhaps misrepresented the legal situation to the ALRC, and the result is that the license was not valid, and they were informed by people from the city attorney's office of that. Assistant City Attorney Zellaby.
I just want to confirm that nothing else is necessary. Tracy and Larry have worked together for as long as I've been sitting on this committee. So,
yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
If you want to see some real fun history, though, go back and read about the Orpheum's liquor license with previous ownership. It was a doozy. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to grant item 5. Do I hear any discussion? Hearing none. Is there any dissent? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 5 is granted. So next up is item 9, the change of licensed premises regarding the patio. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? Lieutenant Marshall.
Thank you. On behalf of the East District Captain, I'd like to ask if you have considered any sort of sound mitigation for the back patio in light of the residential neighborhood behind, or if you've been in touch with the district alder or the neighborhood association.
Tracy?
I haven't talked to anybody about it, but the patio has been there for the couple years, and we own the house behind there, if that helps.
So presumably if you are annoyed with yourself, you'll have an internal discussion.
Yes.
It makes a short commute too, I guess.
Yeah.
Excellent. Committee, what additional questions do you have for the applicant? Jim, are there any other registrants for this item?
No, there are not.
All right, a motion would be in order. Mr. Fletcher?
Move approval.
Your motion to grant from Mr. Fletcher, second from Mr. Bruchuk. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. Item 9 is granted. All right. Thank you for joining us, Tracy. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. And can you guys actually see me when I'm talking?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Then my video must not be on then, right?
I think that's a feature that only ours is on and not the people who are coming before us.
Okay.
So,
well, thank you so much.
Of course. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
All right. Next up, we've got item 6, change of license conditions for Garver events, but we've also got item 16. That's a new license for Garver events. So, Jim, do you know why we've got both of these?
Yeah, so they're 2 different locations. So the change of conditions is for the current Garver events license, and the new license is for I believe Oldbrook Gardens is where they're having a license there to do the catering there.
Excellent. Well, then let's take them in order, but we can do both of them in order right now, so this person can get out of here. So do we have a registrant here for this item?
So Daniel Smith and Bethany Jurwitz are here registered.
Okay. So Daniel or Bethany, whoever wants to go first, can you please state your name for the record, let us know what your role is with Garver Events, and tell us what you would like changed about your license.
Hello.
Go ahead. Do you want to go, Dan?
That's fine. My name is Daniel Smith, food and beverage director here at Garver Events. For change of conditions, we're looking to extend our hours on Saturdays. We currently have a liquor license that's goes until midnight, and we've realized it's a challenge for us to do our primary business, which is booking events and other community things at the same time. So an example is the farmers market, which we host for the winter. Makes it very difficult to have the farmers market and then also turn around and have a wedding on the same day. So our hope is that we can just extend our Saturday hours until 1 o'clock so that we can better suit those private events that we like to make money and also host events that boost public engagement in the space.
Of course. And committee, in addition to being the food and beverage director, Daniel is the agent for this license. What questions do you have? Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Daniel, maybe 2 questions, and I appreciate the example that you provided in the application materials with the Dane County kind of farmers market. How many events are you sort of running in a given month?
Okay, should I jump in there, Dan?
You can. Yep.
Okay. So it's very seasonal, of course. In the winter months, we tend to have 4 to 6 private events per month. That's
Bethany, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Bethany Ravage. I'm the Director of Public Programming and Business Operations for Garver Events and Daniel's business partner. So we have 4 to 6 private events in the winter months, so January, February, March. And that is in addition to public events. So we define public events as festivals, markets, anything that is open to the public, such as the Dane County Farmers Market. Femstival, the All-Female Food and Art Festival, happens in February. And then during our on-season, so April through December, we have between 5 and 12 private events, and slightly fewer public events, partially because it's so difficult to flip the space. So our private event contracts are all 12-hour rentals. So what we were doing, since we were unable to flip the space, is having to change any contract and adjust the pricing for the rental in order to do a market during the day and a private event at night. And it impacts our bottom line, and it's also a lot to juggle when you're juggling so many events. And we're hoping to just keep a 12-hour event contract.
Oh, and having attended a wedding or 2, I'd rather be there later than midnight. So, Mr. Fletcher.
So, Bethany, I think you got sort of where I was going in terms of the next question, which was, this seems to be a recurring issue for you with sort of the balance, of events booking at the space.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely reoccurring. It obviously weans and wanes based on the season and the demand for public and private conflict. But we, as the public programming person, I would like to do more public things. I just can't, because there's just isn't the time to flip the space.
And the last sort of question I have, conversations with Alder Foster, his reaction to this, if any.
I spoke with Alder Foster about this, and he actually agreed that it was probably a good idea. He put it out in his newsletter and did not, to my knowledge, receive any comments back from the neighborhood. So
great. Thank you both.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Committee, what additional questions do you have for the applicants? Mr. Verbeek, are there any other or Ms. Reese?
Sorry, quick
Dr.
question.
Reese, sorry.
No, it's fine. Do we know why the earlier restriction was put there, or was it just because it was new?
Because it was new.
Wait, say that again?
Because it was new.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Any further questions? Jim, is
And Chair, there are no other registrants.
All right, Mr. Fletcher.
Move approval.
Your motion to approve the change of license conditions in item 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Daniel and Bethany, what time do you want it extended until?
1 a.m. was the hope.
Okay. And Mr. Fletcher, that's.
Yeah,
right.
the 1 a.m. on Saturdays was what I had seen. So.
All right. So got a motion to extend hours to 1 a.m. on Saturdays. Mr. Bruchak.
I'm seconding your motion.
Wonderful. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. Item 6 is granted. And Daniel and Bethany, so you don't have to go away. Can you please tell us about item 16, the new license?
So we recently were actually approached by Olbert Gardens. They had lost their contract with their current alcohol vendor for all public and private events at Olbert Gardens. We ran some numbers, and we've already done catering and other small events for Olbert Gardens. So we have a really good relationship with them. We decided it would probably be a good opportunity for us to working in collaboration with them to take over this license with them. They put out a request for proposal, and nobody had responded to it. So we are happy to do that as neighbors, and hopefully a beneficial partnership between the two of us.
Excellent. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant's Assistant City Attorney Zellaby, then Mr. Fletcher?
Thank you. Just a little housekeeping thing. Number 16 on the application was left blank. That's just the state and date of registration of the corporation. And then on item 26, it says, do you plan to have live entertainment? And it says no. But Olbrich does have live entertainment, correct?
Correct, but I would think that is under their licensing.
As strictly the providers of the beverages, we won't be
booking
coordinating any events or booking anything.
Thank you.
Assistant City Attorney Zellaby, is that a satisfying answer?
Yes.
Thank you.
I could reach out to you with the state and date of registration.
If you can just give that to the clerk so they can put it on the application, I would appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Dr. Reese.
Does this fall under a circumstance that's similar to some of the other ones we've seen recently, where there's an outside food and beverage person that also then applies for the entertainment license?
So this circumstance should be very similar to the Madison Children's Museum or the library.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't remember the details of those, but I know that it's the same situation.
And
and
those
the
are
zoo.
separate entities, right, for entertainment and alcohol? Jim, do you know?
I think we have had those entities have an entertainment license. I do not see an entertainment license for Blue Plate, who's the current license holder for the Olbrich Gardens. So it's not something we've done for this location in the past, but I think it is consistent it's consistent with what we've done to have them hold an entertainment license, even though they're not the promoter of the events, that if entertainment, be it live instruments, performance, DJ, or designated dance floor, occur on a premises that is licensed for alcohol, should have an entertainment license.
Right, because we want to make sure that alcohol is used responsibly and according to license in the midst of, that's why we have entertainment licenses, right, with that situation. So maybe we ask them to look into that, or look into that outside of this meeting.
Actually, I'm going to call on Assistant City Attorney Zolovi first.
So, to be clear, Jim, Blue Plate did not have an entertainment license at this location?
Correct.
Okay. But there is one at the library, correct?
I'll double check that, but I believe that's correct.
Okay. But I can connect with them after the meeting and figure out the appropriate next step in terms of the entertainment licenses.
Okay. Would you also be willing to send an email to the committee letting us know, giving us guidance on what we should do in future cases?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Baruchak, then Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These questions, I think I'm fair to say, have confused me for sure, and potentially other members of the committee. I'm wondering, could we solve this problem by recommending to council an ordinance change, or is it is the problem with the state law?
I think it is entirely appropriate to suggest an ordinance change. And certainly I agree with you that there is some lack of clarity about what the right answer is. And by the principle of least astonishment, we ideally should not have rules that are unintuitive.
And I will say that the entertainment license is not a state statute thing. This is a purely Madison general ordinance thing.
All the more reason. So do we have any members of the city council with us tonight? So, Mr. Verbeek, would you be willing to convey to our councilor members that the committee is interested in some additional clarity in ordinance on this subject?
Okay. I do believe Alder Revere is here.
I can, I'd be more than willing to reach out to him on my own time.
By all means. Excellent. So, Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was kind of just wondering as well whether, since the committee has dealt a couple of times with the Vilas Zoo, if that might be another example of sort of where we've dealt with this more recently. But my question for Bethany and Dan really is whether and what operating changes they are sort of considering compared to when Blue Plate was the sort of vendor at the Albert Gardens.
Dan, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it, Beth.
Well, I do know that one request or item of excitement that the public events coordinator at Olbrich is excited about is the upscale nature of Garver events and the Garver Lounge, and that we'll be bringing some of that level of service to Olbrich. That, you know, having specialty cocktails at things like Cocktails in the Conservatory that are on par with what's served in the Garver Lounge is a point of excitement and something that we look forward to bringing there as well. So that is definitely part of it. I mean, to really get down to a little bit more nitty gritty stuff, Blue Plate focused mostly on a la carte sales. So where a customer is saying we want 2 kegs of this and 4 cases of this, and they just buy it and come and serve it. Whereas we offer more packages and more cohesive menu sets setups. So almost taking a bit more active role in what's being served as opposed to the customer deciding exactly what they're getting. There are a few reasons we do this that I won't get into unless you really want me to. So those are probably the two biggest changes that people will notice. I know our bar manager who has I've taken our staff to a couple events over there to just see what service is like now. I know that physical setup, especially for public events, will likely look a little different as well. Just the way their atrium space is used when it's opened up to the outdoor space. I think she has something a little bit more sleek in mind.
That's no, thanks about that. Just sort of, I typically like to understand that question if there's anything major. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I apologize for my technical issues. I'm traveling right now on this holiday eve and driving, so it's hard for me to follow along the meeting as I normally would, and hands-on and hands-off here with the seeking recognition. So I apologize I didn't chime in earlier about the entertainment license question, but I agree completely that it's something that we need to figure out. We've had several examples of this where we have, in essence, alcohol concessionaires before the committee the last few months, and of the belief that they are not responsible for an entertainment license. So I will take the lead in working with either Attorney Brist, who I know is off tonight, or Attorney Zillivi in refining our ordinance. I don't know if Attorney Zillivi wishes to volunteer or not. If she does, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm happy to work with Steve in the coming weeks to try to put something together for the committee. But let me ask, if I may, and I don't mean to hijack this agenda item with this conversation, but since it's been raised, does the committee believe that it would be appropriate to have the committee discuss this before we draft something, or would you just like us to work together on a draft and bring it to the committee for consideration then, Chair?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Burshak thinks of that.
Well, I'll say this. Thank you, Chair, that I will, I'm going to start diving in and coming up with some ideas. And I'm intending to provide those ideas, whether that come, depending on the timing of things. If there's a draft before we get a chance to talk about it that I can read, I'll weigh in. However, if there is not a draft, I will still weigh in. But I'm not, I suppose I'll let the alders and the city attorney's office work at their own pace.
Well, how does this sound? Why don't we ask Mr. Verbeek to add this as an item to our next agenda? If there is proposed legislation, we can discuss it. And if there isn't yet, we can talk about what we'd like to see in it. That work for you?
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. Assistant City Attorney Zillivi.
Just letting Alder Verveer know I will volunteer to work with him on this.
Hooray. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Daniel and Bethany, sorry about that.
No worries. Can I also say that if you are looking for any community input on that, I think either Bethany or myself would be interested in reviewing or contributing what we can to that.
I have good news for you. All our meetings are public, and members of the public are welcome to register to share their opinions on any item. And we would be delighted if you show up and give us your thoughts. All right. So, committee item 16, new license application for Garver events at Oldbrook Botanical Garden. Do you have any further questions for the applicants? Ms. Westra.
No questions. I was just going to move approval.
All right, I hear a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Second from Dr. Reese. Just be sure, Jim, are there any other registrants on this item?
Mr. Chair, I thought the Assistant City Attorney Zilvi had her hand up.
Oh, Jennifer, is that a current hand or a past hand?
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting to put my hand down.
Oh,
sorry.
It's funny, like after this much time of virtual meetings, you know how you get body language from other cars on the road and you can tell based on, you don't even know that person doesn't have the directional on, but they're going to turn. I've started getting that like, no, that's not a real hand. That's just a lingering hand.
Good instinct.
Okay. So Jim, are there any other registrants for this?
There are not.
All right, so we've got a motion from Ms. Westra, second from Dr. Reese to grant item 16. Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Were there any conditions under the Blue Catering sort of version of this?
Jim?
Let me check that. Should be looked. Just give me a moment.
And then, Chair, could I ask a second question? Well, maybe of you or Assistant City Attorney Zilvi. So in the past, where there's been kind of an underlying agreement with the city, I forget what our practice has been in terms of incorporating by reference any sort of things from the agreement that necessitate conditions or not on the license. I didn't necessarily see anything in this instance that would maybe reach that level of conversation, but I guess I wanted to pose the question.
I mean, there is an implicit condition that they have control over the space. So in a normal case, it's because they have a lease. In this case, it's because they've got a contract with the garden. So if that contract were to be terminated, they would not have control over the space and de facto the license would not be valid. And there isn't anything that we need to do to make that happen. That's just how it is. Have I answered your question?
You have. It was more around if there are extra, let's say, limitations around the alcohol sort of operation piece of it that are in the agreement, and whether or not those would affect or necessitate a condition. And I just didn't see anything in the agreement.
They definitely don't necessitate a condition. In the case of the beer garden at Olbert Park, we took a number of the conditions from their contract and put them in the license for the comfort of the neighbors. But even that wasn't necessary.
Because of the contractual enforcement piece of it that would always be there, right?
Exactly. It's just like how we don't have to put something in a license saying that people aren't allowed to do something that's illegal, because doing a thing that's illegal is inherently a violation of the license. I guess that isn't the same as somebody breaching a contract, but unless we care in and of ourselves about whatever the stipulation is in the contract, then they don't need our help.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Mr. Verbeek.
No, there are no conditions on the Blue Plate license.
Excellent. Any further questions? Hearing none. Is there any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. License is granted for Garver Events. That was about 5 times as long as I thought for something that uncontroversial, but that's how it rolls at ALRC.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Yep, good night.
All right. Next up, item 7. Item 7, change of licensed premises for Cafe Coda. Do we have a registrant here for this item?
We do not.
Mr. Fletcher.
So, Chair, I think this is what the third, I forget, Jim, fourth time that we've seen this. So, unless there's anything else, I would move to sort of place this on file without prejudice.
Yeah, so this is the third time it's gone before us. I did talk to somebody who said he's with the organization. I don't know if he's a member, who said that they weren't intending to use alcohol in the space. And I advised that person to get in touch with Hannah John Taylor, who submitted the application, that if that is the case, he should tell me to withdraw the application, but I never got any such communication to me. And I did send him the invite to this meeting and did not get a response. So that's as far as we've gone. So my opinion is, I think it would be perfectly in order to place on file if that's what the committee wanted to do.
So is that your motion, Mr. Fletcher?
I think that's consistent with our practices, so yes.
Excellent. I see a second from Ms. Westra. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Item 7 is placed on file without prejudice. And I just realized we still have one of our interpreters here. Sully, you're welcome to leave the call. You don't have to be here anymore. Right, perhaps she already did. Next up, item 11. 11 is a 21 plus entertainment license for the International. Mr. Verbeek, do you have a registrant here for this item?
Sorry, yes, we have two registrants, David Rodriguez and Apollo Marquez.
Excellent. Welcome, David and Apollo. Can you please decide who's going to go first and state your name and relationship to the business and what you're proposing?
I'll go first. If you can hear me anyway, my name is Apollo Marquez, half owner of what would be this. Obviously, is not in existence yet, but looking at doing a sort of cafe lounge, trying to do breakfast, lunch, dinner, so cocktails later in the evening, with entertainment. Hopefully on a weekly sort of a level, but just kind of small, maybe like 3-piece jazz bands, a single DJ, probably not any sort of specific dance floor or anything. Just kind of music more for the ambience of it.
Excellent. Thank you. Committee, what questions do you have? Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. David, do you, you kind of...
That was Apollo.
Oh, sorry. I guess I have a question for both of them. And I mean, I think as I look at the kind of second page of the application, in terms of the details around anything to do with a security plan or anything like that, and could you did you not fill that in because you didn't think it was applicable, or just help maybe fill that part in?
Yeah, I could probably answer that one too. I had spoke with Jim a little bit on it, and I did get like a late version in when I was running through this application, and was kind of told that if it didn't pertain, or I didn't think it did pertain, just to not fill it out. But so I did kind of a version with an NA in those. But primarily, I've had other, I guess, venues before. So some of the kind of questions that just kind of struck me as being for like a whole different sort of scenario than what I'm anticipating. I mean, we're not going to have any sort of event that would require a security personnel, for like item number 2, as far as like, being dressed specifically or with identifying clothing. Same thing goes, I guess, for like the entrance line being managed or controlled. I can't envision any spot where something like that would have to be done. Obviously, like some of these will pertain. Question at the bottom, about management personnel. We're just not far along enough to have specific managers hired yet or anything. So I don't have, names or anything for that. We definitely would have to have some sort of, escape plan in the building if there's to be a fire or a situation like that. Obviously, dealing with like unruly patrons, if somebody happens to be intoxicated, those are things that like you're not really anticipating happening. I don't really see those as specific to any sort of entertainment, but they're items that are going to come up regardless, just with having, a business in general. So they are things that I guess we will have to identify moving forward. I just for the application, I guess I just wasn't. It just doesn't seem like there are specific items that we would have to have nailed down, I guess, at this point, if that makes sense.
Perhaps to make the concept clear to the committee, on the spectrum from hotel lobby to nightclub, like hotel lobby is 0 and nightclub a 10, what are you envisioning?
Yeah, 0. The place is 1,200 square feet. It's like a 55-person capacity. It's pretty tiny, with, and that's 1,200 square feet, including all of the seating, the bar, the back storage, like everything. The entire footprint of the space is 1,200 square feet. So it's a tiny, tiny space. What we might have for a stage is like an 8x8 by 7-inch tall seating platform, basically. So somebody wants to jump up and, announce a wedding or like a karaoke event or just a DJ there. Like I said, more of an ambience kind of cafe lounge. So not like an event, I guess, is the point.
I think if you in those
David, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm David Rodriguez. And I'm the other owner, the other half owner.
Excellent.
And in that scenario, it would be like a hotel lobby with really good steak or duck l'orange.
Excellent. Mr. Fletcher.
Think that I appreciate that sort of where we are on the kind of scale and again sort of being earlier concept. So for now, I think my question's been answered at least. So thanks.
Excellent. Dr. Reese.
Thank you. Yeah, this is still an application for a license, and there are legal considerations that we have to make and that everyone has to fill out, regardless of the amount of years of experience that they've had in the industry. And so, even if it's just explaining what you just said out loud, we need the information on the form and answered to the best of your ability at this point to be able to grant a license.
Thank you, Dr. Reese. Assistant City Attorney Zellaby.
Thank you. Dr. Reese is 100% right on the money with that, especially since it's an entertainment license, but even though they say, well, this is what we're going to do, the license doesn't restrict what they're going to do. So if they decided to change what they're doing, you would want to have this information considered and on the application. And I will say too that sometimes even 50 capacity venue has resulted in total chaos. So the size of the venue isn't really so relevant in terms of having those items on the application. So thank you, Dr. Reese, for that.
All right. Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Zellaby. Mr. Bruchak.
Can I ask a question to David?
Yes.
Do you own any other licensed establishments?
I own Taco Local on 811 Williamson.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
All right, committee, what additional questions do you have for the applicants? Mr. Fletcher.
David Apollo, how long do you think it would take to meaningfully or substantively fill this out to sort of the discussion earlier? At what stage, I guess, in the process overall, are you to kind of competently sort of fill out what Dr. Reese and others have discussed here, regardless of sort of the risk profile you've given?
I definitely could, if what I guess I've spoken on as far as the items are concerned, if something like that still suffices, it wouldn't take very long. I don't know. I guess it depends on more, I guess, what you're looking for.
I mean, I think it's, maybe Dr. Reese wants to chime in. I think it is the best picture you can provide in terms of how you're going to, utilize and the entertainment license and within the parameters that are sort of outlined in the application. I think, again, regardless of the risk, I think the committee just is wanting to understand things like, how you intend to deal with unruly sort of patrons. And that's varied by business, right? Some businesses have written, a few sentences to that regard. Others have come in with entire paragraphs, depending on the nature of the venue. So,
sure.
I think, this is David. I think maybe our misunderstanding was with some of that because it isn't like, people were applying for the nightclub portion of things, but it really is not a nightclub. It's a place to have dinner where there would be jazz alongside it. Or if you booked us out for a wedding, it'd be a platform that, your 3-piece setup could post up, but it's alongside dinner. So when Apollo said he didn't feel like a lot of the questions seemed relevant, that's probably why, because the answers would be the same as would be just for your regular liquor license on how you would handle an unruly patron in that situation. So I don't think, because what we're doing, in our plan and in our eyes didn't seem like we were creating an environment that was any more susceptible to wild behavior. It's really just trying to have an opportunity to create a 1960s mid-century vibe in a small kind of intimate restaurant. And so I think that's probably why, that's why the questions weren't answered, and when they are answered, and that'll be kind of how the answers come across.
Yeah, so this is Apollo. I guess probably a better way to state what I meant by saying that I had filled it out and sent it back in, but late. But I just put down NA as in not applicable. I guess I was just thinking more specific to the entertainment end of things versus like, any establishment. It doesn't really matter what you have, and I understand size doesn't really make any difference either. But there's always the possibility of underage drinking. There's always the possibility of a problem at the entrance or what. So I guess I wasn't thinking of it as being, part of the entertainment end. So
and also I want to make sure that the vision that you have in your mind of the space isn't one where we have, this billing of bands that are showing up and people who bought tickets and are waiting in line and, it's smoking cigarettes standing outside and this kind of like wild nightclub environment. That's absolutely not what our restaurant is intending to be. What we really want to do is have a very classy restaurant where you're sitting and there's a beautiful jazz band playing or a DJ playing like nice kind of low tunes that can accompany your very adult dinner and cocktail.
But yeah, so otherwise to the question, I guess I could come up with a summation probably fairly quickly for the questions that are here.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Dr. Reese.
I fully understand what you both are saying and makes sense. I mean, most of the applications we get in here for entertainment licenses are pretty sure that they're going to have a laid back, chill environment. But the fact remains that this is the application and we need to have them filled out and not just NA. I mean, maybe description of clothing, you might not have security shirts. I could see that one not applying. But even if it's not specifically security personnel, who's going to be in charge of, making sure things run smoothly? So unless there are other clarifying questions, I would like to move to refer this to the next regularly scheduled meeting when we can consider a full application.
I hear a motion from Dr. Reese to refer to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting, second from Mr. Fletcher. Discussion, Mr. Bruchak.
I'm going to pose this motion. It seems like a paperwork issue. I think we heard enough from the applicants now that we could fill in the paperwork on their behalf. Of course, that's not ideal. Of course, we want applicants to, come prepared. And I'm not trying to imply that Dave and Apollo are unprepared. However, I think what we've heard tonight is satisfactory. So I would oppose the motion to refer.
All right, Mr. Fletcher.
I think I understand sort of completely, Mr. Chair, where Mr. Broshuk's coming from it. I would say in this case, though, it is the difference between one clerical item that we can fix and amend on the record, which we typically try and help with applicants, versus an entire security plan being missing from the application, which should be detailed. And I think in this instance, it would be sort of, it's very difficult to walk an applicant through the entirety of doing it at the meeting, and we should have that for the record. So thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Right. Mr. Verbeek, will you? Oh, Mr. Bruchak.
Just for the ease of the committee, I'll just say that we don't have to do a roll call. That's not what I'm asking for, but I will ask to be recorded as a no on the motion.
I appreciate that, but I'm still going to ask Mr. Verbeek to call the roll. Mr. Verbeek.
All right. Let's see. Alder Revere. I'll come back to him. Mr. Broshuk?
No.
Broshuk, no. Dr. Reese?
Aye.
Dr. Reese, aye. Ms. Westrow?
Aye.
Westrow, aye. Mr. Fletcher?
Aye.
Mr. Fletcher, aye. Alder Revere?
Aye.
Alder Revere, aye. Chair, that is 4 ayes and 1 nay.
All right, motion carries. Item 11 is referred to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting. And Apollo and David, if you get that information into the clerk, you can have it available for us before the next meeting.
Will do, definitely. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Thanks for your time tonight.
All right, next item 12, new license for Hot Lunch. Do we have a registrant here for this item?
Yes, Roger Bartz is here for this item.
Excellent. Roger, can you please introduce yourself, tell us your relationship to the business, and tell us what you're proposing?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Roger Bartz. I am one of the owners of Hot Lunch, and I am the on-premise bar and service operations manager.
Excellent. And
committee, if you'll recall, this was on last month's agenda, and Roger's background check was flagged, and we were waiting for additional information from Fond du Lac.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So, do we have that additional information?
From MPD, if you're looking for me, I did not see a report from Fond du Lac. I did see a report from Sheboygan. I don't know if that was
maybe it was Sheboygan.
Okay. That I do have. What is the board's or the chair's pleasure?
Mr. Bruchak?
If I recall, Captain Zanders said Fond du Lac. If he misspoke, then maybe it was Sheboygan, but I recall Fond du Lac. So are we waiting on information from both Fond du Lac? So we may still be waiting on information from Fond du Lac. And if I understand correctly, we have the information from Sheboygan.
There is information from Sheboygan. I will double check my records to make sure.
Mr. Baruchak?
Can we, you can pass me, thanks.
All right. Dr. Reese?
If I remember correctly, where we discussed this application, and really the only hang up was just the legal matter about.
I believe that is
right. So that's all we need to know is everything okay on holding the license end of things for him. That's what we needed to know from police and attorneys.
Well, I believe Lieutenant Marshall has announced his readiness to answer your questions. So fire away.
Well, and if I could, I just looked at my emails from PD Record Check, and it said it's from Sheboygan County as they were waiting for it. So I believe that's accurate. I think Kevin Zanders may have misspoken and said Fond du Lac, but Record Check said it's Sheboygan County.
For the record, I do have a police report and the background check from Sheboygan, which may be responsive to what the committee is asking for.
All right, committee, what is your pleasure? Dr. Reese?
I guess I'm not exactly sure what to do here. Like, do we need to hear anything, or do we just need to know that we're legally allowed to proceed? I'm not exactly sure how much. I'm always in favor of not publicly disclosing unnecessarily information, especially when it's from a long time ago. So that's why I'm asking this. Do we need to have it read, emailed to us? Like, what do we need to do? Or can we just have the attorneys and Lieutenant Marshall say, no, this is acceptable, and we can go from there?
I can ask a couple of questions. So, Lieutenant Marshall, is there a felony conviction?
There is.
Is there more than one felony conviction?
I see one felony conviction from 2005.
Okay. So, Dr. Reese, if I understand the state statute correctly, an applicant who has a felony conviction is not allowed to hold a license, be an officer in a corporation or agent, unless the ALRC either determines that the conviction is not substantially related to the sale of alcohol, or that, in our opinion, sufficient time has passed that we no longer consider it to be a factor. So I will leave it to the discretion of the committee what questions you need to ask of Lieutenant Marshall in order to make that determination. Mr. Baruchak.
Can you please remind or report to the committee what the felony conviction was for?
Very good, sir. The felony conviction was for a fleeing or eluding an officer, essentially a pursuit in furtherance of a first offense OWI investigation. So the OWI itself would have been a municipal forfeiture, but the eluding is a Class I felony.
Dr. Reese.
Just ready to make a motion if there are no other questions.
Mr. Baruchak, do you have questions?
I'm willing to hear the motion.
Dr. Reese?
Based on the reasons stated in the discussion, the full discussion we had at our last scheduled ALRC meeting, because these issues are so very long ago, not substantially related to the operation of the business, I would move to grant this license.
Here, a motion and a second from Mr. Baruchak. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there any dissent? Hearing none, motion carries, and item 12 is granted, and my neighborhood will be happy. All right. Thanks for joining us, Roger. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Next up, item 15. Item 15, new license for Draper Brothers. Do we have a registrant here for this item?
Yes. Jonathan Sosnowski.
Yep, I'm here.
Can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your proposed business?
Yes, you can call me Jack. I go by Jack Sosnowski. Thank you for having me here. And Jim, thank you for your assistance getting me on Zoom. I'm not great with it. Thank you very much for that. So the Draper Brothers Chop House will be located at 101 North Hamilton, which is, I guess, mostly well known as the former Blue Marlin, and two other establishments after it that had a short run, Hamilton's and Boar and Barrel. It's a historic building. It's actually been landmarked, and we've been working with the city on that, as well as the landlord, Greg Thomas. We think it's a great building. It's really, just been a staple as a restaurant on the square in Madison. We they'd like to continue that tradition, bringing in a white tablecloth, high-end dining restaurant. Calling it the Draper Brothers because for a long period it was the Draper Brothers Meat Market. So we'd like to play off the historical element of that, bringing in a steakhouse concept. Pretty straightforward. I've been around Madison, owning, operating, buying, selling restaurants and bars at State Street and the Capitol Square. And very excited for this new endeavor. I guess the biggest thing that's going to be different than the previous establishments is, with the help of the landlord, we are expanding to the second floor. Historically, the second floor has never been used at this at the current location, and it brings the capacity up from a small seating capacity around 40 to just under 100, which makes it a little easier to run a restaurant, having more churns a night in the current environment of restaurants. Other than that, a small outside patio will be applied for, but pretty straightforward. We're in the very early stages of renovating, and we're hoping for a early spring opening. Other than that, I am happy to answer any questions and keep things moving here on Thanksgiving Eve. And thank you again for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Jack, and congratulations on answering the first 8 questions that people would have asked.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah, I can tell. Assistant City Attorney Zellaby.
Hi, thank you. These are just clerical things from the application. You checked on 15 that you have not taken the responsible beverage server training course, but that you would complete it before the ALRC meeting. Is that?
Yeah. And in the past, as the holding, do you still have to do the class if you are the liquor agent? In the past, that's what we've done. I'm happy to take it, but I guess that's a question that I had for you.
Wait, because aren't you the liquor beer agent elsewhere?
Yes, I will be. So do you still have to complete the?
If you've already done it, you don't have to do it again.
Okay. Yeah. So I would just, I guess, pay the fee and move forward with that.
Yeah, we usually say. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we usually say if you're either a liquor beer agent somewhere else or you hold an operator license that has been valid within the last 2 years, if you just want to get us a copy of either of those licenses, that would suffice as a supplement for the beverage server training.
Not a problem.
And then item 16 is blank, and so is item 18. If you could just provide that information.
Yep. So it's the LLC under Hamburger Ranch LLC, incorporated in Wisconsin. What was the other?
Who the registered agent for the corporation is?
That's myself.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Right. Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Zolfi. Committee, what other question, Mr. Burschak?
I don't have a question. I'm ready to move to grant.
I hear a motion to grant from Mr. Bruchak. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Fletcher. Are there any additional questions for the applicant? Mr. Verbeek, are there any other registrants for this item?
There are not. I'm sorry, I blanked on whoever seconded the motion. If you could,
Mr. Fletcher.
Constantine.
Of course. So we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion or debate of this motion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none, motion carries. New license for Draper Brothers is granted. Congratulations, Jack.
All right. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody. Appreciate it.
You too. Yeah. All right. Next up, item 17. Item 17, new license application for Mishqui Peruvian. Do we have a registrant here for this item?
I'm refreshing. I didn't see anyone before, but it's been a while since I refreshed. So, no, I do not see anyone registered for this item.
Mr. Fletcher.
Refer to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
There a second? Second. Dr. Reese. Okay, we've got a motion to refer to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 17 is referred. Item 19, new license application for It's Good For You. Is there a registrant here for this item?
Yes, Christopher Guglielmo is here.
Excellent. Christopher, can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your proposed establishment?
Yeah, hi, thank you, everybody. My name is Chris Guglielmo. I'm one of the owners of It's Good For You. We are a catering business that's been around since 2016, and we are centered around a mobile wood-fired oven. So we go around to different festivals and neighborhood events, as well as to people's homes, and provide wood-fired oven pizzas. As we've grown, we made a commitment to purchasing a property and converting it into our commercial kitchen space that also will contain a wood-fired oven for pizza, as well as a small seating area where we can do some small pop-up restaurant events.
Excellent. Thank you. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? Assistant City Attorney Zellaby.
Hi, thanks. Sorry, I keep having all these questions.
That's funny. I was just going to thank you for all of the work you've done tonight, keeping us on point. So no apology necessary.
For the premises, it says in the warm weather months, alcohol will be served in the front/back patio spaces.
Correct.
Right. And is this an existing building?
It is.
Was it used as a restaurant prior to you purchasing it?
Correct. It was a beauty parlor, and prior to us actually purchasing the building, we went through the conditional use permit with the city to have conditional use as a restaurant space.
Okay, and did the conditional use include the outdoor spaces?
It did.
Okay.
Any further
Can you
questions?
be a little more descriptive of what the outdoor spaces are?
Yes. So the building is a small building. It's 1,000 square feet. It's 20 feet wide by 50 feet long. And in the front of the building, up against Sherman Avenue, is a small patio that we resurfaced and can accommodate maybe 12 to 16 seats. And then the back space is actually a parking lot. But we're just, we actually asked, we don't really intend on using the back patio or the back parking lot for seating. But when we had the conditional use application, we decided to basically just shoot for the stars in terms of the amount of seating that we could get approved for, not necessarily intending to do that, but always knowing we could dial back, our use as opposed to ask for something smaller. And then as our business model may evolve, we would potentially need additional seating in the back. where we would use the parking spaces for seating. So that was our rationale to ask for the back area of the building or the back portion of the property for some additional seating.
Okay, and what do you know the dimensions in the back patio area?
Not specifically. I don't have. I don't know if I have the building plans close by or readily accessible, but it's basically 3 parking spots. If that gives you a sense.
Just because if you are serving outside the premises needs to be defined.
Okay.
Is there a drawing that you submitted?
We did. Well, we have drawings of the seating arrangement. I don't know if we submitted those specifically, but with the plans, when we got our building permit, all of that was submitted to the city and approved. Yeah, with the zoning and so forth.
Okay, so the plans from zoning identify both the front and the rear patio seating area?
Correct.
Okay, so Jim, if you could just reflect on the license that the outdoor license portion are what's on the conditional use for both the front and the rear patio. Because I think this is your architectural drawing, but I need a major magnifying glass to read anything on it. So
sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Selby. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? All right. Jim, are there any other registrants for this item?
There are not.
All right, Ms. Westra.
Move approval.
Your motion to grant. Do I hear a second? Second from Dr. Reese. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any dissent? Hearing none. Motion carries. Congratulations, Chris. Sometimes you shoot for the stars and you hit them.
Thank you very much, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. All right. That brings us to the end of the, no, I'm not going to jinx it. Item 20, discussion and decision on ALRC meeting virtual or in person for future meetings. Mr. Bruchak.
I move to have a hybrid meeting starting in our first meeting in January and continuing until the committee changes its mind.
I hear a motion from Mr. Bruchak. Is there a second for this motion? I believe the motion dies for lack of a second.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I believe in Robert's rule, I can look this up real quick, but if my understanding of Robert's Rules of Order is correct, the second is actually not required, or the chair could second the motion.
By all means, you're welcome to look it up. I have been wrong about many, many, many things in my life. Do you mind if while you are researching that, we give people the opportunity to discuss a bit?
Yeah, that's fine. And if we're going to debate my motion, I will assume that that it essentially is the same as a second. If we're going to not debate it, then. But sorry to pull procedure at the last minute on a Thanksgiving Eve.
Not a problem. You're absolutely within your rights. So technically, we shouldn't have discussion without a motion. However, since long before I was on the committee, it has been our practice to deliberate to some extent before anybody makes a motion, or at least have the opportunity for that. I believe Robert's rules are intended more for situations where people show up already knowing what they want, as opposed to a collaborative body working together to learn and understand a situation and come to a conclusion. Dr. Reese.
Yeah, the reason why I didn't second was because if I remember from our last meeting, were we waiting for more information from staff about the feasibility of hybrid?
I believe that is a question that we had. So
that's my question.
Sherry, are you able to answer a question for Dr. Reese?
I'm actually going to defer to Jim. Jim has had conversations with staff. And so I'll let him take the lead on this first, and I can answer more if there's
by all means. Jim, take it away.
Sure. So I looked into hybrid, and the best room that we have set for hybrid is the council chambers in 201, which is our regular meeting spot. I checked with the county to see if we could be in there, and we can be in there for 8 of the 12 months. The other 4 would be in 354, which does have capabilities, but they don't have, it's controlled by, Sherry can correct me if I'm wrong, but the county's Zoom is the only one in there. And so City Channel wouldn't be able to control remotely the Zoom aspect of that. But I believe we can control it within the room itself. So that would be more on us. And we would need at least the chair and vice chair to undergo a brief training on how to handle the Zoom part of that and the integration of the hybrid meeting.
Excellent. Thank you. Before we move on to additional discussion, I want to make sure that people understand the situation. So do people have questions for Mr. Verbeek about how that would work? Okay. In that case, Mr. Fletcher, then Mr. Bruchak.
I think I'm glad we had the question addressed from last time. Jim, can you give us just an updated sense of, have most other city committees moved to some sort of hybrid format now?
I don't know. I didn't look up who all meets in hybrid. Maybe Sherry might have more information on that. I know the council for sure does, but I can't recall what other committees meet on hybrid.
As of right now, the council is the only one that's meeting in hybrid. We do have the room, just the fact that we only have one room available at this time that can do hybrid as a city room. That's limiting us a little bit, but I think also just maybe other bodies haven't necessarily discussed this yet, maybe, or voted on this particular aspect yet.
And Chair, maybe a question for you. When we talk about sort of hybrid format, do you have any expectation of committee members being in person present when they can be versus sort of being remote?
I believe that whoever makes a motion for what we do would have the prerogative of specifying rules like that. I don't think I should do it as by chair fiat.
I will take that then as you do not have a preference or a recommendation chairing the committee.
I do not have a recommendation. And I have no preferences that I at this point choose to express.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bruchak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I found a website. It's called JurassicParliament.com, and it confirmed what I believe Robert's Rules of Order says about seconding a motion. Robert's Rules of Order is it's a book. It's like a publication, so I'll have to go to the library to get the specific rule reference for you. But what it says is for small bodies under 12 members, which I think we have under 12 voting members on this body, a second isn't required. Second of all, it is typically courteous among members of a small body to give their fellow members a chance to make a motion and debate it. And it's secondarily courteous for one member not to belabor a point that the body's truly not interested. Thirdly, I have a question for you. Where did ALRC meet before we went to Zoom?
We would meet most often in the council chambers, room 201, 210, 201, the council chambers. And occasionally when it wasn't available, in other rooms in the city county building or across the street.
Thank you for that. I think that council is hybrid. I'll note that and leave it there. Thanks.
Of course. Dr. Reese.
Just to say that I tend to be by nature Robert's rules averse, and I get used differently in different situations for many points around equity and culture, blah 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 blah. So that's my issue. But having said that, and maybe whatever the order is supposed to be, I would welcome a motion again, that same motion perhaps.
Mr. Bruchak.
I'll make my same motion, which was to move to a hybrid format meeting starting for our first regularly scheduled meeting in January and continuing until the committee changes its mind by majority vote.
I hear a motion and I see a second from Dr. Reese. Discussion. Dr. Reese.
Is it necessary to add an amendment as long as staff can accommodate it? So we're not forcing a change that isn't ready, but pushing forward, or maybe that's not necessary.
I would welcome that. Oh, go ahead, Chair.
No, please.
I would welcome that friendly amendment on the condition that it's feasible and doable by staff.
I think it is great to have that included in the motion. I think that kind of logic would say we can't say that something happens that can't happen, but showing that we understand that is great. What further discussion do people have?
My only concern, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. My only concern with this is voting on it when there are so few of us in attendance who are able to make this meeting.
Ms. Westra, is your concern more, and maybe it's some combination of this, is it more that we haven't gotten to hear the opinions of the other members? Or is it that that they might vote a different way and we aren't hearing their votes?
I think both. So we've had a discussion about this, but I feel like that discussion had more questions versus about the feasibility versus what people want to do. I also think that things have kind of changed a little bit since our last discussion. I mean, whatever vote comes out, it can always get brought back up next week or next month if someone dislikes the vote and they want to see if they can change it. If they weren't here. And I forget what that's called.
It'd be reconsideration.
Reconsideration, yes. I've been on vacation for the whole week. The brain.
Not a problem. All right. Any further discussion? Mr. Bruchak.
I'll note that I think most of the missing members are alders. And they have the Common Council has already moved to a hybrid setting.
In fact, all of them are. So you are correct. Any further discussion? Oh, wait, no, they aren't all. One of them is not. I was counting Mr. Verbeek. All right. So if there's no further discussion, is there any dissent? All right. Mr. Verbeek, would you please call the roll?
Yep. Give me a second. Hold on, my thing's not working. So. All right, here we go. All right, Oliver Revere.
Aye.
Oliver, aye. Mr. Bershuk.
Aye.
Mr. Bershuk, aye. Dr. Reese.
Aye.
Dr. Reese, aye. Ms. Westra.
No.
Ms. Westra, no. Mr. Fletcher.
Aye.
Mr. Fletcher, aye. There, that is 4 ayes and 1 nay.
All right, motion carries. We will move to a hybrid model starting in January of 2023, unless staff are, for whatever reason, unable to accommodate, in which case we will not until such time as they are able to. All right, next up, item 21, report of Madison Police Department. Lieutenant Marshall, is there anything to which you would like to call our attention?
Yes, on behalf of the captain, several calls of note, primarily in the downtown area. 303 North Henry, do you want the actual addresses or block numbers? I should ask first.
This is things that you would like to tell us, so tell us what you would like to tell us. But people will have the opportunity to ask you questions after this.
Sure. Okay, then from the captain, we've seen some disturbances, 303 North Henry Street, which is the plaza, 222 West Gorham, which is the Red Rock Saloon. We had an individual ejected out of there. 322 West Gorham, which is Danny's Pub. We had an incident where an individual, due to their size and level of belligerence, required 6 bouncers to subdue him and escort him out to the officers. And I will also go over to 420 West Gorham Street. This is a large group of individuals fighting, one of them possibly with a firearm, out front of Chasers 2.0, Chasers Bar and Grill. A number of people fled the scene, and we ended up finding an individual in the area of Gilman and State Street and pursued him on foot. I will also note an incident that Assistant Attorney, City Attorney Zillaby was with us for at the Red Shed on October 29th. We contacted inside a total of 36 individuals and ended up with 29 fake IDs inside the establishment. An individual or two may have slipped out the back door when staff wasn't looking, but most of the discrepancy of the difference between fakes collected and contacts was due to several officers not being versed in how we do these checks. So that is an abbreviation of the calls for service as provided to me by the captain.
All right, Mr. Baruchak, then Mr. Fletcher.
Were the fakes like would a reasonable bouncer, bartender, someone who's trained to look at these IDs, should we expect that they have spotted them as fakes, or were they too good?
My experience working downtown of late is that we're getting a little bit of a mix. There are still some of the classic fake IDs that are clearly not getting a good look at, but some of the fake IDs that we are getting are very good of late. Some of them will also scan through some of the scanning programs and apparatus some of the bars are using. So they are getting pretty good. And actually, surprisingly, they come with quite a cost. We had a meeting with Assistant Attorney, City Attorney Zillaby. I think, Jen, if you have some information or more on that, you might have a little more information on that too.
Assistant City Attorney Zillaby.
That's not really a discussion item on the agenda, but I guess it probably can fall within the calls for service. But just to echo what Lieutenant Marshall said, the IDs pretty universally scan now. So having the scanner isn't really of much benefit, because other than to get other information and to show that they did in fact scan the ID, I drafted a letter that I will be sending to the Central District bars that are typically frequented by the younger crowd, and I'll be sharing that with the ALRC as well. And there will be some significant prosecutions coming down the pike, and once those are filed, you will be made aware of those as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Fletcher.
I'll infer from Attorney Zillaby's last comment, but I mean, whether or not there's a substantive update to provide at this moment on the situation from the city bar a few months ago that has been a subject of discussion at this committee a few times.
I'll defer to learned counsel Zillaby.
The complaint is drafted. It's lengthy, and I just have to go back through and verify that the data in it is correct, and it will likely be filed next week. So for sure at the December meeting, there'll be more to say about that.
Thank you.
Maybe what other questions do you have for Lieutenant Marshall? All right, thank you, Lieutenant. Next up, item 22, report of City Clerk's Office. Mr. Verbeek, do you have anything to which you would like to draw our attention?
I would just say that officially on October 31st, that the city absorbed 3 regular Class B combination licenses and 2 Class A beer, Class A liquor licenses from the town of Madison. And as of today, the city is no longer in possession of any open regular licenses, because the last one was claimed by the Cardinal Bar. So any Class B combination licenses being issued until any further ones are surrendered will be reserve licenses that incur the $10,000 reserve fee.
What are the Class B establishments that were absorbed? Is one of them, or what are the establishments?
Let me just bring that up real quick. They are the so the Class B establishments are the Mediterranean Hookah Lounge and Cafe LLC, WR Properties, DBA Clarion Suites, and Service America Corp, which is the Alliant Energy Center. Those are the 3 Class Bs. And then the Class As are the Madison Pantry at 2022 Fordham Avenue and Skylight Food Mart on 2050 Fish Hatchery Road.
Cool, thank you. Mitty, what questions do you have for Mr. Verbeek? All right. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So your motion from Mr. Fletcher, is there a second? Second from Mr. Bruchak. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed have the same privilege. Motion carries. ALRC meeting is adjourned at 7:40 p.m.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a great night.
Night.